Introducing the Italian Grape Geek program, a new and original approach to Italian wines. IGG, as it's fondly known, is a book, a podcast, an online theory course, and an in-person tasting course. Our pocket-sized book briefly introduces 80 grapes with benchmark producers, helping you find and taste these great wines on your own. Space to make your own notes makes the book a personal record of your Italian wine journey. No time to read? We've read the whole book out loud with added insights from Italian wine ambassadors. Listen for free on Italian Wine Podcast. Obsessed with Italian wine? Take the super accessible online theory course. Get certified as an Italian grape geek. Want more? Our international IGG educators have got your in-person tasting course to cap off your full IGG immersion. Go to mamajumboshrimp.com and sign up today.
The occasions of consumption have changed compared to our parents or our grandparents. So usually people drink wine not at home over a 2 or 3 course dinner, but maybe at a bar, out with their friends, aperitivo. So it's usually social occasions. And this calls for a wine that's approachable, that's easy to drink, that doesn't need half an hour to decant.
They're kind of looking for just like freshness and like brightness, and like you don't have to know too much about wine to enjoy this.
Yeah, people are still looking for complexity somehow, but it's a different type of complexity. They're not looking for these opulent wines. Even though they're wonderful, maybe you drink a glass of them and then you're sick of it. You're not going to finish the bottle. I think that's a very cool indicator, because sometimes there'll be a wine that people really compliment, but the bottle remains half full. And sometimes there's a wine that's more approachable, the bottle's empty. Which one are you going to pick? And this is the thing that ties to our philosophy in winemaking too. We want wines that call for a second sip. You know what I mean?
Welcome to the Italian Wine Podcast. This is the next generation with me, McKenna Cassidy. For the next episode, I invite you to explore with me what young adults are up to in the Italian wine scene. Let's feast on our discussion of Italian wine and culture. Grab a glass with us. Chin chin.
Welcome, everyone. I'm McKenna from the next generation of the Italian Wine Podcast. I'm so excited for today's episode because we get to learn about Umbria, a region we don't often get to chat about, but specifically from Matteo Guerrini, who's 24 years old and living in California. Such a cool story behind his background. And the Guerrini Wines, a family-owned brand, really dedicated to sustainability, and also the shining Pinot Noir grape grown in Umbria. They produce several Pinot Noirs, including a traditional method sparkling, terroir-specific Pinot Noirs, and a rosé as well. So welcome, Matteo. Just thank you for sharing your time and expertise.
Of course. Thank you guys for having me.
It should be awesome. So I know that we have so much to talk about today, but let's start with kind of one of our main topics, Matteo, as we were thinking of what we should share with the listeners and what topics we want to unpack. So before we dive into your family story, I want to talk a bit about something that's been on my mind and yours as well. It's kind of this culture shift in how people, especially Gen Z, are approaching alcohol. I think we're seeing this trend where people maybe are drinking less overall, but when they do drink, they're very intentional, choosing quality over quantity, very attentive to the story in the bottle and even what occasion they're drinking for. So from your perspective, as someone who's part of that next generation, you're 24 and you're making wine as well, and you're developing a wine brand. So what changes are you seeing in how people are connecting with wine today, both in Italy and maybe US?
That's a wonderful question to start with, and there's a lot of depth. I think to answer, we need to go back to the history of wine, especially in the old world, so in Italy, France, Germany. Wine has been traditionally part of the diet, so it's been a necessity for hundreds of years. And lately, in the past 20 to 30 years, we're shifting towards not a necessity to drink wine anymore, it is a choice. And so when something becomes a choice, people make a decision that they want to drink wine instead of something else. And so they're looking not only for the taste, but they're looking for an experience. I think this is a key word that's often overused, but I think it's crucial to understand how our generation approaches drinking and wine drinking in general. First of all, the occasions of consumption have changed compared to our parents or our grandparents. So usually people drink wine not at home over a 2 or 3 course dinner, but maybe at a bar or out with their friends, and then aperitivo, as we say. So it's usually social occasions. And this calls for a wine that's approachable, that's easy to drink, that doesn't need half an hour to decant. At the same time, people are looking more and more for those flavors.
They're kind of looking for just like freshness and like
Yeah,
brightness, and like you don't have to know too much about wine to enjoy this.
yeah, people are still looking for complexity somehow, but it's a different type of complexity. They're not looking for these opulent wines that maybe you drink, even though they're wonderful, maybe you drink a glass of them and then you're sick of it. You're not going to finish the bottle. I think that's a very cool indicator, because sometimes there'll be a wine that people really compliment, but the bottle remains half full, you know? And sometimes
Yeah.
there's a wine that's more approachable, the bottle's empty. And so, which one are you going to pick? And this is the thing that ties to our philosophy in winemaking too. We want wines that call for a second sip. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Tre bicchieri. Uno, due, tre.
And so
It's a real thing.
it is 3, 4, 5. And then I think our generation also is very informed. So back then people didn't care that much where the wine used to come from, how was it made, and all these things. And now people want to make informed decisions and want to know what they're drinking, want to know what the winemaker, what his philosophy was, if he cares about the environment, about sustainability, which again is something everyone talks about and everyone kind of claims to be sustainable. But I think it's something that people really care about today, and it's our duty as wine producers to listen to them and sort of respect that aspect as well.
Do you think that producers can feel some type of pressure to produce wines of this certain type, like representative of freshness, or giving this more simplicity, or still having complexity but not too much? And do you think that there's any like social pressure to produce a wine that fits that because that's the category that's growing? Or are you of the mind that like a producer should make the wine that their land is offering and like help their place shine, and the amount of people that will enjoy that will enjoy that? What's your thought there?
This is a very cool question, because I actually think that for a lot of years, so wine, I think, there's periods, right? So in the 60s through the 80s, we had wines that were lighter. If you look at the top rated wines that were 12.5%. Then there was a lot of pressure, mainly from the people that were ranking wines, so Wine Spectator, Parker's, etc., go towards bolder wines that were more opulent, that had more alcohol, more volume, more red fruit. And so in the past 20 years, even in the varietals choice, like Cab or Shiraz, or wines that are by definition that have higher tannins, that have a bolder structure. So people have felt pressure to go that way because that's what the market was demanding. At the same time, now with climate change, because it is a thing, so grapes are ripening earlier, summers are warmer, and that's really a problem because the grapes are going to be mature, but they don't have a long ripening season, so there's no time to develop all those aromatics and those characteristics. So now that's also an issue that we have to deal with. But going back to your question, now it's shifting again. So it used to be fresh, then it got to bold, and now it's going to fresh again. And so everyone is trying to figure out how to please the consumer. So maybe making more rosés, more whites, more sparkling, adding more sugar, because that's also something that my generation loves, which is sugar. And we're all sugar junkies. And so, but I think personally, I hope that there's still a number of winemakers out there, quote, like sort of don't care too much and try to make the wines that represent them and represent their terroir. And this is kind of what we are trying to do, which is, go with our philosophy that maybe in 20 years will be outdated. We don't know, but that's what we go for and that's what we love.
I hear you. Yeah, talk to us a little bit about your winery in Monteleone di Orvieto and the history of Guerrini and like...
That was great pronunciation. That was not easy.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot. Yeah, talk to us about like your history there and kind of the journey to today's mission.
So the history goes back to my dad and my grandpa, because in 1958, they opened a wine shop in Rome. And on my dad's side, we come from the Alps, sort of between Lazio and Umbria. So we're kind of from that region. And then after years in the wine business, my dad, he always wanted to make his own wine. And so in 2009, we acquired a property a historic property in Monteleone, and there was some old Sangiovese, and we decided to explant it and plant Pinot Noir, which, was kind of even today, it's a very rare thing. And, we got a lot of, I was going to say we got a lot of shit for it, but that's probably not podcast.
We may have. We got a lot of crap, flack, hate, critiques.
Crap, yeah, with a lot of critics for it, even from some neighbor winemakers, because they didn't believe that a grape like Pinot Noir could thrive in a region like Umbria, which traditionally harvests different types of grapes. But we are at about 600 meters, so 1,800, 2,000 feet above sea level, which gives us great climate excursion. That's key for Pinot Noir. And we planted those vines in 2014. Real first vintage was in 2021. So we're very young winery still. But we got amazing feedback both from Italian clients and American consumers. And so that tells us that we're going in the right direction. One of our missions is also to bring Umbria out of its cage,
It has kind of like a stereotype, Matteo. Like there's a stereotype of Umbria, and to kind of break those borders a little bit.
Yeah, there's a stereotype with Umbria making very traditional, easy to drink, medium to low quality wines. And I think it's such an underrated territory. I always refer to it as Umbria being what Tuscany was 6 years ago. So it's a wilder version of Tuscany. It's the greenest region of Italy. It's called the green heart of Italy. And I think that plays a major role in the quality of wines. For example, in our estate, which is about 80 acres, 60 of those are just forest. And that's something that we love, because we believe that forest and vineyard, they complete each other. So when I go in the vineyard early in the morning, I'll see deers. Sometimes I'll see boars, which are scarier than deers, but you gotta do what you gotta do. And
Yeah.
we have bees, we have all sorts of animals and insects. And I think that really shows in the wine. When the nature around you is healthy and is thriving, that also, I think, really, really increases the quality of your grapes. And it's also, it sounds obvious to say, but it's also like the right thing to do. If we took down hectares and hectares of forest just to replace it with grapes, that wouldn't feel like we would be respecting the territory.
Is this a core facet of the sustainability efforts that you guys embody on your property? And what is your mission in sustainability? It feels like more than just checking some boxes. It feels like a personal philosophy to the land and farming. What does that look like from your perspective?
So we define ourselves as very low intervention. We are on top of a hill, which is amazing because we have wind blowing 365 days a year. And that's great because if it rains or if there's moist in the morning, the wind is gonna sort of dry it out. And then that serves as a natural barrier against diseases. On top of that, again, we try to intervene not more than 2 times a year, but only when needed. And we try to make efforts also in the cellar. So our cellars are we basically dug like under a hill. Our cellar is subterranean, so there is a natural temperature within the earth, which is perfect for aging wine. So we don't have to rely as much on AC, on lights and things like that. Yeah, so energy is also a big thing. Water is also a big thing. We have our own well, but we try to limit the use as much as possible. So it's a lot of little things that go into it. And at the end of the day, we try to do 95% of the work in the vines so that when it actually comes to harvesting and actually making the wine, the product is already there. We don't need to do anything. We use native yeast. We don't need to do anything weird, in terms of winemaking.
So for native yeast, you bring the grapes in, you crush them, you're doing like a short maceration, and then you just let it sit in the vat and it starts to ferment spontaneously? Or are there like native yeast that you're inoculating with?
So it really depends on the vintage.
Okay.
Because again, some wineries, they want to have the same wine every year. We really try to let that vintage speak. So in some cases, the yeast on the skin of the grapes will be enough. In some cases, we'll add yeast of the same type, so it doesn't mess with the natural balance of the grapes.
That's awesome. Thanks for laying out the sustainability. I think it can be, like you said earlier, a blanket term or an invitation to just say, yes, it's sustainable, hurrah! But hearing the details behind it, I think, grants more meaning to the wines. Maybe we should share a bit about the wines you produce. You make two main Pinot Noir. You have the Migliare and the Monteleone.
Yes.
Tell me about those two. What's the difference in sight for those two?
So Migliare means cornerstone. And I think that's a wonderful name because it showcases that is the wine that is the foundation of our winery. That's where our mission is, and that's where our vision is. So it's a fresher and very elegant expression of Pinot Noir. We use mostly a stainless steel, but also new French oak. We use different types of barrels to bring out different sides, different flavor profiles in the wine. And that is the more, I want to say, approachable of the two wines. The Monteleone, as you said, with perfect pronunciation again, is the old name of the town where the winery is, and it's a historic name. It dates back from the 1500s. And by the way, in that specific area of Umbria, winemaking has been a thing for, it was one of the first places in Umbria where winemaking started. So more than that, we love the name because it represents, or it shows what a still somewhat unknown territory can do. And the Monteleone is the richer, deeper expression of the wine. So they kind of complement each other in some way. And this year, breaking news, we're gonna come out with the Reserve too. That's gonna be
yay.
our third wine. The
That's
best
great.
of the winery is the first year, but we found that 2024 was such an exceptional vintage that it called for something exceptional to be made. And then we do a lot of things with Pinot. So we also have, as you said, a traditional method, which we love. It's 100% Pinot Noir. It ferments 3 years, so 36 months on the lees, which for the joy of our winemaker that has to twist each bottle every time. So it's a lot of work, but it's
So much fun to riddle away for 3 years.
it's a lot of work, but it's one of my favorite wines. I find it so elegant. I find it really unique. You don't find traditional methods in Italy other than Franciacorta. And so, again, we love doing original things. And then finally, we have a Moscato. We have a couple hectares of Moscato. That was another challenge. And that was the first year. You tasted it, right?
I did. All of these were delicious. And yes, the Moscato.
The Moscato
awesome.
is I love it because it's always a surprise because people are expecting this sweet wine and they're like, oh my God, I don't like Moscatos. I don't like dessert wines.
Yeah.
No, try it. And then it's an off-dry wine, 10.5% ABV, and it's not a dessert wine. It's perfect for an aperitivo by itself on the beach. So it's very approachable, but at the same time, it's somewhat complex, which kind of throws people off. And then finally, we have a still rosé, 100% Pinot Noir, which doesn't get talked about enough, I think. We love a dry style. And this year, we're going to make a Chardonnay too. So that's
Wow.
the newest addition to the portfolio.
Congrats.
We might make a sparkling with Pinot and Chardonnay. We might blend it, or we might make it as is. I can't say yet. Can't reveal the secrets, but we were all very, very surprised by the quality because the vines are still young. They're 6 years old, I think. So we're ready to have a very good product, and we're excited to show it.
That's delightful. Very hopeful. This is cool to hear that you have the freedom to add these additional expressions. It sounds like Pinot Nero is kind of the core variety as of now and may continue to be. What do you picture maybe 10 years from now for Guerrini, like when people are opening the wines, and what's your hope that they experience in these wines?
Yeah, as you said, I love that we're doing something that doesn't exist, so we have the freedom to experiment and come up with new ideas, with new wines. In 10 years, oh gosh, I hope that Umbria would be a well-known region in the wine world, and so when someone opens a bottle of Guerrini, they will taste, they will feel the passion that we put in it, the effort that we're all putting in making Umbria. I was gonna say make Umbria great again, but that sounded so bad.
That was funny.
I spent too much time in the US. I hope that people will realize that Umbria is not just Tuscany's neighbor, but it's a wonderful terroir which is still untouched. It hasn't been explored yet, and that has a lot to give still.
Well said. Ready for the rapid fire questions?
Yeah.
Okay, just say what comes to your mind first. It'll help the listeners get to know you. Okay, if you could share a bottle of wine with any winemaker, past or present, who would it be?
I would definitely be Aubert de Villaine, which is the DRC ex-winemaker and one of the owners.
That would be awesome. What's your favorite food pairing with Pinot Nero?
I'll throw you off with this one. It's fish, especially if it's oven roasted.
Because then you get the crispy, the development of flavor, kind of the caramelization of like the fats and sugars, and that's awesome.
Yeah, everyone would say meat, but I think fish, it's so underrated with Pinots.
Yeah.
It's just wonderful.
That's awesome. What's one wine region in the world that you've always wanted to visit?
Georgia, not the US state, but the country, because that's where wine started. Like, I think they found amphoras that were 8,000 years old. And so I'm kind of curious to see. I know there's a lot of family-owned wineries that still make wine as their ancestor used to. And so that's kind of my thing.
That's awesome. Also, what are you doing in California?
So we're partnering with a winery here, which will be our sister winery. And I think it's wonderful because it's going to give us a new platform to share our wines, and it's going to give their customers and our customers a bridge between the two continents. We're going to plan trips. We're going to allow people to move from one continent, from one region to the other, and sort of experience both worlds.
That's so awesome. Matteo, thank you so much. This has been a really fun and thoughtful conversation. I loved learning about your family's winery, your projects, your inspiration, and your mission. Just thank you so much for sharing everything, and we're so excited to continue learning about the future.
Thank you for hosting it. Thank you for giving me a platform to speak, and I hope we'll talk again soon.
Looking forward to it. Chin chin.
Chin chin.
Tante grazie. Thanks so much for being here with me today. Remember to catch our episodes weekly on the Italian Wine Podcast, available everywhere you get your pods. Salute.